Hello everybody, Protofoxy here, coming back at you with another video, and this time we're going to be doing another looking back type video. Those seem to do pretty well. Y'all seem to enjoy it, so I'm going to go ahead and get another one out. And looking at this here, I don't want to say whether or not this is in honor of, but more just in line with the announcement that Michael Bay is supposedly returning. I don't know if it's rumored or, heavily rumored or expected that he's actually working on a new Transformers project, which, and take it for what you will, I suppose. But we can all admit, or at least most of us can admit, I'm sure some of us out there, Transformers fans being us, can turn around and say, well, no, all of it was trash. But the majority of people and the box office would prove this point, that the 07 movie was actually really, really good. It was definitely an enjoyable first flick in a franchise. And of course, you can't fault the Transformers 07 film for the rest of the franchise when Michael Bay handled it, taking a nosedive. But I digress. What we're here looking at are, how I'm going to do this, because there's going to be several videos looking back at some of the movie, the 07 movie toy line. But I'm going to be focusing on the main cast characters, on-screen characters. I may do a video of some, toys that were, game-based, because obviously the 07 movie video games, which was wildly popular at the time, released for a lot of systems or a lot of ports. They had some game exclusive characters and what have you. But we're going to be looking at right now the mainline, deluxes and Voyagers. I do not have the leader class Optimus Prime at the time, and the story goes, my son was born 10 days after Transformers, the 07 film, the first Michael Bay movie. He was born 10 days after it hit theaters. So I had to be very selective around that time of what I was buying from the 07 film. I did get the mainline cast, didn't go over Voyager. I didn't buy the leader class toys. Did buy a lot of fast action battlers, which I'll be doing a video talking about too. But this is a main cast, and you'll see here I did have the original deco for Jazz, but I ended up giving that to my son later on, because I went ahead and got this. And we'll talk about the Decepticon ones here later, because I did get the G1 deco of Jazz, and I actually prefer that, and I believe that was a Target exclusive. But we're just going to take a look at them and transform them and just kind of get my general thoughts, because I got to tell you, the first movie toy line, now objectively Revenge of the Fallen, the second film, had the more accurate toy line, and I'll be taking a look at that too. But the 07 toy line, it was just a magical time in Transformers. Yeah, were they inaccurate? And you'll see as we get through and looking at each figure, and again, it's not full reviews, we're just kind of gonna transform them and go through them. Inaccuracies were abound because the engineering wasn't quite there yet. They haven't figured out how to translate the figures more accurately to their on-screen models as far as robot mode goes. Vehicle modes, and with the exception of one, we'll get there, were definitely very accurate to their on-screen counterparts, because they obviously had licensing through GM for the majority of the stuff, with the exception of Optimus Prime. We're going to talk about him in a bit. But yeah, and I actually went through, now I do have the 07 concept Camaro Bumblebee, but I really wanted to hone in on this one, the 76 Camaro, the Junker Bumblebee, because as I'm grabbing this here, and I just wanted to showcase this. But 07, it was just a different time for Transformers. But I want to showcase this and go into it, and we'll go into it when we transform it. But I just want to go, this is actually my original DVD copy of the 07 film. The 2-disc special. Obviously, the case has seen better days. That flap's gone. That's, falling apart. I can glue that. But the inner case, this was the 2-disc set. Special edition, whatever you want to call it, but that was a 2-disc set. You had your special features, you had your feature film, And this is DVD, obviously not Blu-ray, but obviously the case did transform. We'll just pop up his head. He'll be too tall to be on camera in his robot mode. But, you know, it was a neat little collector's piece. We'll put that back in there and put that back in the background. But yeah, we're going to talk about just each car, you know, each vehicle, and then transform it into a robot. And as I'm like knocking my camera around, we'll leave that in. That's just funny because I hit it. But I wanted to start in first because this was the first Bumblebee that we got, and this is the 76 Camaro. The 07 Camaro, I believe, came out in a later wave, and it was actually harder to get at the time, and then of course it became more widely available. But the concept Camaro was actually short packed. But this is a very, very nice approximation of a 76 Camaro. Looks good. Opaque windows with paint. And as you can see, mine, and this is original from 07. This is my original toy that I had. You know, some scuffing. But it fits in with the whole junker aesthetic of Bumblebee anyway. But we'll go ahead. There were issues with the initial first run of this figure, and I actually believe this was a first run because you can see the gappiness here, that the gears for the Automorph gimmick didn't lock into place, and they could actually snap, and then this, you'll never get to sit correctly. It won't ever sit correctly in vehicle mode. Knock on wood, mine has not done that, and this is from 07. So, but we'll get into it, and you can see the underside, you can see how it works. Now, transformation, they weren't super complex, considering that their designs were super complex, but we're going to do right now, and I've been messing with this Bumblebee because there was a reason I went for this one, and we'll talk about the concept Camaro later, but because the thing is I really actually love the 76 Camaro design, even though it was pretty much a widely disliked version of the Camaro, but I liked it. I always thought it was a really cool, sleek design before they went into the 80s for that boxier type look. But and then you'll see different things working, like automorphing gimmicks. You know, the whole thing was you had gears and such that moved things automatically as you transform. You saw that happen with the legs. We're going to go ahead now. Here's what I was talking about, and so you can see this is kind of funky. The gear itself hasn't snapped, but you have a button here that you push. You're supposed to push down all the way, and then the hood comes down. And then as it comes down, you start flipping everything else into place. And there it is. So boom, and then things shift into place for robot mode. So it more kind of mimics the on-screen model. But then we got Bumblebee. Let's separate his legs. And I believe... And this is old, so yeah, that's the way that sets. And now, mind you, 07, they haven't figured out engineering quite yet. So, like, the feet in particular on this Bumblebee were incredibly inaccurate. But everything else, detail-wise, for the 76 Camaro is actually pretty good. And now, obviously, you have ports here. This is supposed to mimic the shoulder cannons for the... final battle scene, but I always just keep him in his hands. The 07 Camaro ended up having a full piece unit that went over his hand for his missile launching blaster, and of course it mimicked a knife, which we wouldn't see until later films. But articulation wise, pretty standard for 07 Deluxes. You know, rotating wrists, you know, ball joints here at the shoulder, ball joints for the elbow, pretty expressive. Ball jointed hip, knee goes about that far, and then of course the foot, and this one's a little loose because again it's old. It's almost 20 years old. No waist to speak of, but all in all, the detail is really good. And let's get in for the head sculpt, and they even hit the Autobot symbol on the chest pretty well. And the head sculpt, even though the paint, you know, being black there isn't accurate to the model, it was all silver, and then different parts picked out. But it, you know, the sculpt itself is actually pretty good. I actually feel like, oh, and the neck's on a ball joint. The head's on a ball joint, obviously, for the neck. But it really good. I felt that was a really good approximation of the on-screen model. But just a fun toy because they weren't aiming these at collectors at the time. They were aiming them more for kids. But they worked. And it was good. And then we get into Jazz, who is a Pontiac Solstice. And this was actually custom done for the film because a Pontiac Solstice was actually a convertible. So it didn't have the hard top. It had a rag top. I want to say it was the Saturn View or the Saturn Sky, which was, again, GM. It was just different models. But it was the same car, but that had the hard top. The Solstice did not, but Jazz here, and he's in his G1 deco, and it even says Jazz right there, so you can't miss it. But this was an interesting take on how to get the for 2007 engineering again, how to get this to transform and to make it look good. And now I feel like, okay, come on now, I don't want to bust stuff up. I got to remember how this one works. I think, there we go, yeah. So that's on a hinge. So we can actually pop that off and move that up, and then we can start. There we go. But the way this one worked was actually really cool. I thought it was pretty clever how it worked. And then it even had faux wheels on the sides of his leg to mimic his on-screen character model. But just transform them. You put that down. Get that here. And again, just really cool stuff back then. These 2007 toys just hit different. And I still love them. They're still big. They're still chunky. They're relatively close to their on-screen models with some caveats. Obviously, again, 2007 engineering. And now this is where it gets interesting and how the hands are handled, because the hood, if I can get it without breaking, obviously, now I think I'm going to have to... No, I actually have to do this first here. So let's go ahead and snap that into place. And then we start shifting and rotating how the arms work here. And this is very interesting because of how they got it to work. And you can see the hand popping out. Come on, baby, work with me here. How are we doing this? And again, old stuff. And I'm really trying not to break them. Duh. That comes out on a hinge. I'm an idiot. Okay. Don't pay attention to that. Now we will move along. And that does that. And these hinge over here. And keeping articulation. It's all hinges, but it's still, you get articulation. You won't have hand rotation, obviously. But, and obviously the color scheme here is widely inaccurate to the movie model because they went for the G1 color scheme. But the other one was a gray plastic as opposed to silver. Come on. Come on. Come on. Okay, let's not force things. Why are you giving me such trouble right now? These hinges. Yeah, this is old stuff. And actually, this Jazz still sits up on my shelf today. On my movie shelf. I have different versions of different characters. So, but this Jazz always sits up there because I feel like Jazz got done dirty in the film, didn't he, folks? He got ripped in half. Spoiler alert for a near 20-year-old film. But yeah, he got ripped in half by old Megatron. He didn't just want a piece, he wanted two. But yeah, then we rotate. Yeah, this one a little bit more complex than I remember. And then we actually take this here, and this is how it works in robot mode, and then just kind of, how did that work? Did we do that? Yep, there we go. Because then it just slides kind of over that to mimic his gun arm, and then there. And then that telescopes, which that's cool. I like that, a telescoping weapon. It's, again, not accurate to his on-screen weapon because it was a big old gun. You could, however, put the trunk area rear spoiler on top of it to mimic that, and I just don't like doing that. And then automorph for him, put his head up, and then everything kind of comes into place, and then those shift in. But then there's, let's get them saying, oh, there's Jazz. And you look at it, and again, G1 color scheme, but it still works with the movie aesthetic. And I tried cleaning up some of the dust he had on it. And again, he was sitting on my shelf. That's why I'm surprised he's as dusty as he is, but he's a little dusty. I thought I got all of it with Q-tips and stuff, but again, good looking take on it. He's definitely a bit chunkier. The robot mode head is actually based on the concept because, obviously it's closed off as a battle mask and not his actual face, but that works. And again, he's chunkier, but he still fits in with how he looked in the film, just kind of chunkier because, again, 2007 engineering. And he still is the shortest version of that, he's still the shortest of the 5, so it still works in scale. And we're going to go ahead and get to Ironhide, the GMC top kick, which is actually this was actually, I believe, done, oh my god, it's so dusty still, and I dusted him off, but he was actually custom made for the film because the top kick is more made for work trucks. And this is a custom street style model. And this is, again, fairly accurate to the on-screen model of the truck itself, with the exception of the big weapons hanging off the back. But, they work as big old fuel canisters. But that comes off there. So we can get those out of the way to transform him, because those actually have to be out of the way. Now, I got to remember how to do this. I haven't transformed this one in a while. The Ironhide I have on my shelf is actually the deluxe Dark of the Moon toy, I believe. But let's see if I can remember this, how this works. And if I get quiet during this section, I apologize in advance, because I'm going to try not to break it. Maybe I got to do the legs first. And the interesting thing with the Automorph is actually in the legs. Oh, maybe we do that. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that kind of hinges out of the way. Maybe that's how we separate things. Yeah, there we go. Boom. Oh, my goodness. That worked out real well. So then we do this. We put those up into place, and I believe... No, that's as far as that goes, doesn't it? Or does that actually... Okay, well, I'm trying to figure this out here. And actually, it is kind of funny because of the logos and stuff. You can tell this one's licensed, Road Armor. You had the GMC on there. Yeah, then everything just kind of... How does this all come together here? Oh, I see. Okay, all right. So, boom. So we actually have to spin some stuff around here. I was doing it kind of backwards. Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. Lord help me. Does this... Oh, that's how it does. Okay. All right. And then maybe that goes on his backside. And then I believe... Yeah, see, that's got to be... So that popped off. That's actually on its own piece, and that actually sets back in vehicle mode. So, yeah, I'm not intentionally parts forming this guy here. But yeah, there we go. And then that kind of collapses in on itself. That goes there. I used to be able to do this without having to do all of this, without the parts forming, so I apologize in... Well, I don't want to say in advance because we're already in it. We're already knee deep, right? Yeah, I think that's how that's supposed to sit. And I think that's how that's supposed to sit. I don't remember this being as floppy. Okay. All right, boom. Didn't realize how big of a pain his transformation was. This one, now the Voyager here, this one's fairly complex. And actually, for wrist rotation, add a ball joint. And then I believe... Now, this is going to be fun. I'm trying to remember how the legs work. Having a hard time remembering how this stuff works. I believe... Saying I believe a lot. I believe I can fly, maybe. There we go. Boom. And the head does set back that far. I don't think that moves forward anymore. And those kind of just because I don't think they peg into anything. Do they? No. Oh, okay. No, they're supposed to sit like that. Okay. Boom. Do that. Do that. Okay. So we have the torso together. Let's see if I can remember the legs without breaking shit. Oh. Okay. I did. That's how that goes. And then, yeah, so you pull the feet down, and that's how the automorph works for good old Ironhide here. And there we go. That was the easiest part. Probably should have done that first. And then, yeah, you can see the automorph. The wheels kind of move up out of the way. Again, just to mimic the on-screen appearance. Again, not insanely accurate. You know, there's some caveats taken. And, of course, now some of this stuff doesn't tab in. I forgot about that, so now we got to try and figure out how to get that all in. Now that does, okay, that's, I guess that's got to sit that way. Sure, that's how that's going to sit, and we're going to leave it that way because I don't want to break nothing. Near 20-year-old toy, don't want to break anything. And then we can go ahead and take, and now, before we do that, you can, in fact, combine these weapons to form a bigger weapon. Gotta remember where it's supposed to meet. Oh, there we go. Boom. Boom. And then it makes a bigger cannon. And you can just put it on, again, tab it onto his arms. But we're going to keep it accurate to the film itself. He had his one cannon on each arm, not super big mega cannon on one arm, but it was cool little play feature. Cool little play feature. So there we go. And that one doesn't want to, maybe, so I had it the wrong way. Yeah, I think that side's that. And this side is this. And then these actually launch. I forget how they launch, but we're not going to discover that because I don't want to lose accessories, but we'll get a look at him. You know, again, accurate as far as color scheme goes, because he was a lot of black. He's very dark. But the head sculpt, fairly detailed considering. Let's see if we can get that to focus. But, you know, fairly detailed head sculpt. You know, again, this is all good approximations. And back then in 07 for this toy line, we weren't seeing stuff like this. This was pretty wild to see that they were getting as close as they were to their on-screen character models. And we're actually going to save Optimus Prime for last. Now, Bumblebee was the obvious marquee character in the film, but we're going to save Prime to last because there's something there that we do, in fact, need to discuss. But then we're going to look at Ratchet next. Here, you know, and I believe I actually might be missing stuff. This is, again, my original figure, but I might be missing a couple of pieces here. And if I am, I apologize. But this is a licensed Hummer 2 converted over into an ambulance, which is pretty neat. And this one actually I remember being fairly easy to transform. And it does some unique things again too with the gimmicks it has. And now this one is one of the first ones that were wildly inaccurate to the on-screen character model. This actually took some liberties because, one, they went Voyager price point, so they wanted a bigger figure. And now, mind you, this is Voyager. Voyager for 07, a very different thing. Very, very different thing. And now I gotta remember, okay, so then this activates the automorph gimmick, I believe, pulling the arms forward. Because that's supposed to set there, and that sets into place once we get him into robot mode. But first, we got, there we go. Okay. Again, try not to break things here. Boom. 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 Kaboom. And so that is like that, and the wheel's set there, and then this flips back, reveals the head, and then we spin the legs around, and then automorph gimmick that kind of bulks that out a bit. But with Ratchet here, you can see right out the gate that he is wildly inaccurate to his on-screen model. He is nowhere near as bulky. And then this actually attaches to this hand to act as a grabber claw type weapon, and you can see that's part of the, let me untab that there, boom, and then I think, oh, there it goes. Yes, I was just pushing too hard. So that's your gimmick there. Head sculpt. Let's move that up a bit. Let's move that up a bit. Head sculpt is fairly accurate to the on-screen model, but he is just incredibly bulky. Ratchet was nowhere near this bulky in the film, so it's, again, inaccurate to the on-screen model. But his other gimmick was, because he didn't come with any missile launching weapons or anything like that, but that he had an axe for a hand, and I believe that's actually based on concept art, if I recall correctly, because he did not, oh, you know what? I bet that was supposed to slide back for robot mode. That's why that was sitting funky. Yep, sure enough. So I missed a step. I'm unprofessional. So let's get that right back into the way it needed to be. So that goes back. That's how it's supposed to set. That's why it wasn't set right. I am a goofy bastard, folks. I am a goofy bastard when it comes to my toys. But anyway, gimmick. And I believe that was based on concept art. He had the axe for a hand, and then of course he had this little grabber claw dealie. He did not have that in the film at all. It was actually he had a buzzsaw for a hand, and he did in fact end up having a blaster. But this was actually a really cool, chunky, big boy here, and I actually dug him. On my shelf, I believe I have the for movie Ratchet now. Because it's accuracy, I believe it's the Revenge of the Fallen. I don't think he was Mech Tech. No, yeah, so it was a Revenge of the Fallen deluxe figure because it fit in. But you know, again, 07 articulation. These are actually on rotational joints, universals, and stuff like that, no ball joints. There you go. Have Ratchet. And he's actually the tallest of them all as far as the Voyagers go, because he's actually stands taller than Ironhide, even though Ironhide should technically be taller than he is on screen, I believe. And that's how that works. So let's get Ironhide back over there. And we come to the icon, Optimus Prime. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this guy, I want to talk about this guy quite a bit, because first off, like I said, at the time my son was being born, had to watch how I spent my money, so a $40 leader class Optimus Prime was out of the question. Yes, he would scale better with this, but I actually prefer this version, the Voyager version. Now, first off, completely inaccurate to the on-screen truck. This is an amalgamation of a Kenworth, I forget the model, and then the Peterbilt they used in the film. Though I think the only thing that's actually accurate is the front grille, and maybe this section here. Everything else is wildly inaccurate, but I actually think it looks incredibly cool. Obviously it still has the blue flames and stuff, and you would get premium finishes on this figure to get it to look closer. But there was a Voyager leader class and Voyager figure in Revenge of the Fallen that was definitely more accurate to that, and of course old springs. But one of his many gimmicks was that he did have an attack mode, and so that was his attack mode, and you can see the front door popping off again, old springs. But another cool gimmick of the Voyager toy, and the reason why I really dig this one more over the original leader class, was that you have little cowboy driver. This is meant to be a mock-up of his hologram, and then it opens up, and that's the only reason why that door is there, to open up and just have that disappear. So door closes, hologram activates. That's pretty cool. But anyway, we get in, go ahead and gonna get him into robot mode, and even the transformation, and then even robot mode itself. And we'll take these off here because these go in his hand. And again, old springs. You can kind of keep that from doing that by pressing on it or fidgeting with it or screaming and cussing at it until it stops. Oh my God, you rat bastard. Knock it off. Okay. Nope. Whatever. Okay, as long as it's not firing off and I'm losing the missile, whatever. But yeah, those are very definitely sensitive. But yep, we're going to transform. Again, transforms nowhere near how even the on-screen character model does. But still a cool transformation nonetheless. And gives off a robot mode. And I'll talk about it in a bit once we get there. And again, we have all of the automorph gimmickry going on right here, and things are popping off, and that becomes a pain in the ass to reattach. Okay. Feet had to come out first. I am so... What am I doing here? What am I doing? Because on that... Oh, okay, there we go, yeah. And that attaches there. That attaches there, so yeah, that acts as the like whole shin cover thing. Oh my god. Fucking attach, you rat bastard. Say so again, old toys. Old toys. And then I believe, yeah, I guess that's correct. Now we get the rotation there, and now here's that. We're gonna do all of that into place. Things go there, that goes there, that goes the way I want it to. There we go. Duh. Things shift and slide. And that, the automorph gimmick was actually in his feet and in the legs, the way things shifted on their own and springs loaded. And then bring the head out, and then we actually manipulate. There we go. This, and he's got a... Ooh, that made a noise I didn't like. Let's not do that. Okay, maybe... Alright, yeah, still kind of snapping. But here we go. Optimus in robot mode. And the reason why I really like this one is, even though he's inaccurate, like, from here up, and again, close approximation even with the wheels on the sides of the legs here. From here up, looks pretty decent, even though he has basically the front end of the truck as a backpack. And you can even store the weapons on the back, and that's how that works to keep the gimmick going. Not super accurate. Like there, I mean, they did everything they could with faux forming and the faux window chest and all of that. The head is fairly close. The head sculpt is very fairly close to the on-screen model with the battle mask on, because it's how the render actually worked. They would get better head sculpts better, because again, this is thick and chunky. They were still doing toys meant to be toys and not aimed at, collectors and then having kid-based line. Even though they did with 07, they did have fast action battlers, which will be stuff I'm talking about in the next 07 related film. But, and again, even with the backpack, he does balance pretty well, because he has big feet, long heels, stuff like that. And actually the feet themselves are sculpted accurately enough. They just transform differently. And of course, he didn't have this in the film as weapons. He didn't have two rifles. He had a sword arm and then a blaster arm, but they peg in there and they fit and they work. And again, Voyager articulation at the time, rotational joints. There wasn't a lot of ball joint stuff here. But I went for this one because I liked how this one looked better. I will say the leader class toy was definitely cool. And because again, I had friends, and even my brother had the leader class Optimus Prime. It was cool, but it was even more inaccurate to the on-screen model, which is something I couldn't get down with. I get it. It was there basically being big for gimmickry, but this fit in line with my budget at the time. And I actually feel like that looked cool. Like if they would have used this for the on-screen model, I felt like that would have been cool. As far as basing it more on this figure, but they did what they could because it was 07 engineering, and I just think that looks super cool, and that was always how I felt like where I needed my 07 Prime to be. Is he inaccurate? Yes, because '07 Ratchet Voyager is taller. But it works for me. It's cool. All in all, as we're going to spin them around, I dug them. I still do dig them. I think they're great. '07, it was a different time, so different engineering. And it just was cool stuff, you know, and these were solid toys. I mean, there were definitely some QC issues I mentioned with Junker Bumblebee. Obviously, some of these automorph gimmicks over time, because it was basically just done with gearing and stuff like that. The gearing would let loose, springs would go, this, that, and the other thing. So, I mean, some of the QC would definitely be a bit on the ropey side. But, I don't know. I mean, mine held up. They still hold up today, and I think they look great. Great approximations of their on-screen character models. And, you know, and to be honest, to get toys without cheats, transforming into something that's as close as it can be to their on-screen models, that was a feat back then in '07. They didn't have, even a couple of years later, they didn't have that kind of engineering technology for these kinds of toys at the time. But this worked and people were happy with it, and the line itself was widely popular. Just like I had mentioned in my, you know, it's going to mess with my OCD, but I'm just not going to mess with it. I'm just going to leave it alone. Leave the mess alone. But just like with the Combiner Wars video I mentioned, where a lot of people will try and tell you that, you know, certain things were bad times, and, you know, people complain about the accuracy of the sculpts and the models nowadays, which is fine. It's a fair argument, but you also got to look at the time. 2007, we were just coming out of the Classics line and then the Unicron trilogy. So to come up with designs so wildly different from what we were used to seeing in Transformers, and to be able to translate them into toy form, again, it was a feat. It was a marveling feat of sculpting technology back for 2007. And anybody would tell you that people were unhappy or this, you know, flopped or whatever, that's not true. And I don't think they really say that about the '07 line, but I know people have gripes, and it's all revisionist history, because this was a wildly popular toy line. Now, I will admit distribution sucked in the beginning. There were distribution issues, and the funny going theory at the time was people that they were that it was massive scalping and this and that, and it was like, no, it wasn't scalping, it was distribution issues. And I'll go into that more in the Decepticon video, but I wanted to look at the main cast of the Autobots. I've yapped on nearly 40 minutes here. Holy crap. But yeah, good looking stuff. Fun little look back. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a like, give it a subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll leave y'all with this. If, you know, I'll leave him, I'm stumbling over myself. I'll leave y'all with this. Be kind to yourself and your fellow human beings, because life's too short to play on. I'll see you in the next video. We got Decepticons coming next.